Pyramid podcast, where three lads discuss all things the English football pyramid. On this evening's episode, we'll have a review of the English side starts to Champions League campaign, preview the weekend's Premier League action and wider EFL, preview Yeovil's trip to Hampton and Richmond in Conference South, and finish with everyone's favourite podcast game, Spin the Wheel. I'm your host, Alex Murphy, and once again, I'm joined by Tom Lawrence and Tom Gallagher. Boys, get straight into it. Tommo, United Champs League last night, scored 3 goals away at Bayern Munich. Probably would think you get something from that, scoring 3, but another loss.
Another loss indeed, yeah. And the way I would describe the result and the performance would be it was basically the most patronising 1-goal deficit defeat you could ever hope for. It felt a little bit like men versus boys. We obviously started the game quite well, similar to what we did against Brighton. And then as soon as the goal goes in, obviously we can talk about Onana. I suppose we will have to, but that was a proper ricket. And then they score straight away again. And it feels like our confidence is so low and so fragile that like we play well, and then the first sort of sign of something that goes wrong, it just completely shatters the performance, or completely takes away the belief out of the team. And we huffed and we puffed, but it felt like sort of Bayern were playing. They sort of had us at arm's length. Musiala and Sané looked unbelievable. Musiala made Casemiro look, and I know Musiala is basically one of the best young attacking midfielders in the world right now, so I shouldn't be too harsh, but he made Casemiro look like he should be going to the Saudi League. And I know we got a couple of goals at the end. A positive, obviously, Hojlund got his first goal. But yeah, it just felt like it was sort of two teams at different spectrum, different sides of the class coin, if you know what I mean. I know what I'm trying to say in my head. Yeah, and it's just another loss. I think it's 4 in a row for United now. Onana come out after the game, and fair play to him. He took responsibility for his mistake, etc. But that happened in the 28th minute. There was still a long way to go, and we didn't have to concede straight away. And then it just feels like United, there's just something sort of mentally weak about them at the minute, because you go and score and you sort of get a goal back, and you're within one, you feel like it's game on again, and then Bayern just go, okay, yeah, we'll score again. And it's the same again after we got our second goal. So I don't know what you thought about it, Murph.
Yeah, I think you're bang on, mate, in that was one of those games where 4-3 looks like we gave a real good account of ourselves and showing. And for the first sort of 15 minutes, you'd say that we probably did. We probably should have been 1-0 up. I think Pellistri should have got to the ball, albeit a great tackle from Davies, and Ericsson should have scored the rebound, and we were getting corners, and Reguilon was looking bright going down the left. But yeah, just what's really frustrating is on this podcast, we seem to be talking about United so much, and it's not because it's 2 United fans on the show. It's just that every week there's a fixture or a result or a piece of news that is just dominating with them, like 4-3 against Bayern Munich, 3-1 against Brighton, 3-1 against Arsenal, 3-2 against Forest. There's no just sort of 1-2-0 victory, United get the job done, move on to the next fixture. No one needs to talk too much about it. We're just always sat here talking about, oh, we looked okay in this part, but we looked bad here, and there's real issues, and this needs sorting out, and off-field stuff. So it's tough really to see where the kind of issues stop for United. I'm hoping, we'll come on to preview the games, and maybe Burnley away is a perfect opportunity for, as I say, a little 1-2-0 onto the next one. But yeah, it's just constant drama with them. So Laura, I don't know what you think about kind of the result and just the kind of state of where United are at, of probably pretty similar to where you've been over the last few weeks.
To be fair, I'm just looking at the Bayern Munich team, and Upamecano, Kim, Goretzka, Kimmich, Sané, Musiala, Gnabry, Kane. I mean, to be fair, I know there's a lot of negativity to be said towards Man United at the moment, but I'm not sure we can I'm not sure that we have to go in too hard on them for losing 4-3 last night. A lot of the things that you've just said about it feels like, the heads go down as soon as you concede a goal. And that does come with not having the confidence within the team. But against Bayern Munich, when you've got that much quality, if you go and lose to Burnley on Saturday in a similar fashion, then all those things are justified. But I think just looking at, I didn't watch it because Leeds were on at the same time, but just looking at the team, I think there's room for sympathy or empathy with Man United last night. But what I will say is I watched the last 5 minutes and I think I've discovered one of my favourite European footballers, Tell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyone ever heard of him before?
Yeah,
Like the commentator kept saying his name, I was like, who? And that finish, right, where it comes over, just one touch, bang in the roof of the net. And then one of you boys, I think it was you, T-Gal, put in the group chat, like Onana, Butterfingers or something like that. And you think, bloody hell, he's just smashed that into the roof of the net from about 5 yards out. So maybe that goes to show the sort of mindset of the Man United fans, and everything's a bit doom and gloom. But
that's the difference between, sorry for interrupting, but that's the difference between Bayern and United, where so Bayern have gone, they bought that Tell last year from France when he was 17. He's 18 now, and he looks like the real deal, and obviously will get better and better. But they've not said, right, let's hang our hat on him like we've done to Hojlund, who's another young striker. They've gone, well, we'll buy Harry Kane, and Matthias Tell can develop and grow and progress as the season goes on while Harry Kane's firing. Do you know what I mean? It feels like the sort of the difference between the two clubs. And you are right, he looked class. Bayern are, well, I failed to say it earlier, but they're basically like a class above United. And you're right, it all comes down to this Burnley game, to be honest, to see how we get on there.
And I think what you've just said was, and like I said, I think I watched from just after Casemiro scored to make it, what would have been 3-2?
3-2.
Yeah, 3-2, right? It just felt like Bayern went, all right, we'll score another goal then. Do you know what I mean? That Tell goal was just like, right, no, we're going to play again and we're just going to go and score. And that almost, like you said, the men v boys mentality, it was almost like that, wasn't it? So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the things you've just said is quite right. But also, let's remember you're away at Bayern Munich, and 4-3 on another day might have been one goal either side and you get a point or something. But I take it from the majority or the lion's share of the game, Bayern Munich deserved to win.
They did, yeah. And just quickly, Murph, before we move on, because it'd be nice if we don't speak about United for once, but Sergio Reguilon had a great game at left back. I thought he looked lively, positive, made a couple of good chances early on in the first half as well, which on another day, if you take them, and at the end of the day, if you go to the Allianz Arena, you've just got to take your chances. And we didn't. And obviously we were made to pay for it. But yeah, he was a really big positive, and so was Diogo Dalot. So a couple of positives, and obviously Hojlund getting the goal. But listen, it's a big uphill struggle now after 4 defeats in a row.
Yeah, we'll come on to them and preview them v Burnley in a little bit of detail. But I agree, Tommo, there Reguilon did look good, albeit I think he looked good against Brighton as well. But as a fullback in a side that concedes 7 goals in 2 games, you probably can only be so good. It's all well and good getting forward and whipping the ball in, but we probably need to stem the flow of goals. So from a 4-3 game, guys, let's jump to a 0-0 though, but equally as interesting in the game. Lawro, Newcastle got a point in Milan. I know that you watched that and impressed with Milan side.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I for some reason in my head, I just have AC Milan as being dead now. Like, because they're obviously not the team they were like 15, 20 years ago when, the famous graphic of that team that they had with your Maldinis and your Nestas and your Kakas, etc. And I was just expecting to probably like English Premier League arrogance, just expecting to watch it and like almost thought Newcastle would just breeze it. But they were really, really good. And I know this won't be breaking news, but that Leao's a player. Now, I don't watch much European football. Do you know what I mean? I think I've probably shown my talents against you boys in the English game, but in European, I'm a novice. So I only watch these players every now and again, and I really liked him. I was surprised that Loftus-Cheek started for AC Milan, given that he's a Chelsea player. And obviously the left-back, Hernandez, yeah, he had a great game as well, didn't he? But I just thought, I mean, Newcastle were really, really lucky because I think they had my mentality. I think they went into that thinking, I know AC Milan is like Everton standard. and just they were like, oh right, 9 shots on target after 25 minutes, and I just thought they got caught a little bit, and they had enough about them to keep them out. But on another day, if AC Milan had their shooting boots on, it could have been an absolute rout because they missed an awful lot of opportunities, and Nick Pope did well in goal. But I really like that clip of Jacob Murphy before the game. Like, he was a really surprise starter, wasn't he? Like, I would have imagined Almiron probably to start on the right for them, given his influence on the team last season. But they went with Murphy, and I thought he was one of their better players. And him lining up, it was a bit like the Bassi one when he went to Ajax last year, his first Champions League game, taking it all in. It was nice to see. And at the end of the day, it was a really good result for Newcastle. So although Milan had the better of it, it will be a point apiece, and they'll have them back at St James's Park and maybe take them a bit more seriously.
Tommo, just on that, one player I want to chat about, because we spoke about England squads and potential issues in midfield and at centre half. Just thoughts on Tomori in that game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he looked really good, didn't he? He kept he sat quiet for the most part. But Newcastle, I don't want to give them any stick, to be honest, because I think that was a great result. And I think 6 of the starting 11 was their first Champions League minutes. So, and obviously Tonali going back to San Siro, it seemed like the occasion got the better of him. It seemed like, especially in the first half, the occasion got the better of most of the players. And yet they're coming away 0-0. Great result. And like Lawro says, if you can get the sort of sneaker draw away from home, no matter where you play, really, unless it's against the proper minnows, which obviously, as we spoke about, they don't have any minnows in their group. It's a great result. And then they take them back to St James's Park and look to get the win. So, yeah, Tomori, he looked really good. But to be fair, right, I know we sort of give Southgate a lot of stick and stuff, and he gets a lot of stick on Twitter for not sort of trusting Tomori. But I watched him a couple times last year against Chelsea. I think it was against Chelsea, and he looked piss poor. So, and I know he had a great season the year before when they won the Serie A title. So hopefully he just has another good season, and then obviously, well, let's just hope. Let's wait and see, because obviously the Maguire thing with United, we need all the centre halves we can get for England. But yeah, on the game, great result, I think. And you just got to move on. Like in the Champions League, in that sort of group, it's just a great result. San Siro is a tough place to go, man.
Yeah, it was good for them. It was good for them. But I think that on Tomori, I think that he, you say, he's looked like maybe not as great in games against Chelsea, but I think that he's someone who's obviously decided to leave England, go and pursue game time, and I do think that he's going to get a bit more coverage being in Newcastle's Champions League group. Loftus-Cheek will get exposure in that as well. People will be kind of keeping tabs on them just based on that Champions League group, and be interesting to see if him and maybe Loftus-Cheek have thoughts on going to the Euros in the summer. Boys, I know they're boring as hell, and this is such a Man City result, but City won 3-1 against Red Star Belgrade. I think it was an Alvarez brace. Part of that after going shot 1-0 down at half time. Highlight from that game was City fans singing "Champions of Europe." You'll never sing that to the Serbian champions, who I think won it 3 times in the 70s. But that's City fans for you. But yeah, Alvarez, he seems to be backing up all of the conversations that are being had about him starting in City week in, week out, and being an unbelievable player, scoring another brace. Any thoughts on him going into either of your fantasy teams?
He's already in mine.
And mine.
And he'll be staying there for the foreseeable. He looks unbelievable. And his first goal was world class, like where he just sort of shifts the ball quickly and then finishes from the tight angle. It was different gravy. I really like watching him because he's one of those players who he works really hard, but he's got the quality as well. And yeah, just another. I know it wasn't a sort of a straightforward win, because obviously went 1-0 down, but obviously at the Etihad they created loads of chances, and you fully expected them to get that win, didn't you?
Yeah, they were brilliant. I actually watched a clip which was talking about the amount of chances that Hojlund gets a game. It showed all of his chances he had in this game and against West Ham. It's absolutely frightening the amount of times that he's in on goal or played in or crosses into the box. And obviously he's not been as proficient in front of goal in those 2 games, but you can see why he does score the goals he does. But City's group looks fairly easy. I think that they're going to go on and get maximum points from that group probably, and will go deep in the competition. But obviously the perfect start for them. And then Arsenal. So Arsenal played same time as United yesterday. So I didn't get to watch the game live, but watching the highlights back, looks like they absolutely put PSV to the sword and got their campaign off to a great start, winning 4-0. I think the interesting point on that we discussed on the last pod, which didn't come to life, was we thought Raya might have started because Ramsdale was starting Champions League, but looks like Arteta went for Raya again. Do you think that's now he's my number 1 until further notice, Lawro?
Yeah, I think like I said last time, I think it always was. It was just waiting until he gets the opportunity. I'm not sure we'll ever see the likes of Aaron Ramsdale again. Be loaned out.
On that, I've just got a question for you, boys. So, because we all think, and I think the general consensus is that Arteta basically just rates Raya better, like higher than Ramsdale, and he's sort of making all of this song and dance up in the press about like substituting goalies and having 2 strong goalies and etc. etc. But the reality is that Raya will be the number 1. If you're Aaron Ramsdale, would you be feel a little bit like put out or patronised by the fact that he's coming out and saying about all these substituting during the game, etc.? Or would because you wouldn't be happy about that, would you? You'd rather him just come out and say, "Look, Raya's my number 1."
Yeah, it's just such a weird one. But I just think that, like I said before, I think Arteta just wants that keeper that can play. Like, I might be in a bit ignorant here. Maybe Ramsdale's brilliant with his feet, but I think of him as being like a shot-stopping goalkeeper. Right, I saw a clip of last night. Raya played this like defense-splitting pass through his own half that landed at the feet of Havertz, which he probably just doesn't think he's going to get from Aaron Ramsdale. And if he keeps doing things like that, there's just no way back for Aaron Ramsdale unless David Raya gets injured. But obviously the deal's structured in a loan, isn't it? And then can be made permanent at the end of the year. So maybe he just thought he'd trial it. But I reckon because he's got that kind of Pep influence, I just think he's got it in his head that he wants someone like David Raya between the sticks. And unfortunately for Aaron, who I think is a fan's favourite there, it means pastures new because he ain't going to stay there being number 2, is he?
No, and the question I also would like to ask you is this: is Aaron Ramsdale a Premier League, Champions League winning goalkeeper? Potentially not, and I don't think Arteta feels that way. Is he a Champions League goalkeeper, top 4 goalkeeper? Maybe, but is he that goalkeeper that can take you to the next level? Which Arsenal, obviously, they're at the level of the top 4 Champions League already. So, do they need? Do you know what I mean?
I was always stunned with the Ramsdale move, if honest. And I know he made some good saves last year. There's I think I remember him at like Everton or something like that. Somewhere just made an absolutely unbelievable save. But during COVID, when he was in goal for Bournemouth, and I know he was in goal for Bournemouth, but I just remember him shipping goal after goal after goal. So I was always shocked at that move to Arsenal. He might not be a Champions League winning goalkeeper, but I don't know what that is now. I don't know. Some of the keepers that would have won the Champions League previously, maybe he'd say the same, but Onana went close last year, for God's sake. But yeah, I think that CL's right. I think he's born out of the Pep school of excellence. He wants a keeper that's not too worried about shot stopping, more about playing out with his feet. Doesn't look like Raya's particularly bad at shot stopping either. So I think we're probably all agreeing that it's not looking great for Aaron.
But the other thing as well is Southgate hasn't got Ramsdale as his number 1, has he? He prefers Jordan Pickford from Everton, who's obviously had a really good England career in the last 5 or 6 years. But I suppose it's a good point. If you're going to be a Champions League winning, Premier League winning goalkeeper that Arsenal are aspiring to be at the moment, you want to be number 1 for your country. I don't know if David Raya is number 1 for Spain, is he?
Well,
do you know what? I don't think that he starts for them. I'm sure he's been in squads because De Gea doesn't get anywhere near the Spain squad, does he? But I think there's like Simon, it might be, or something like that, a Spanish keeper. But I think Raya's in amongst the squad, similar to Ramsdale. But you are bang on. If he went on to win the Prem and Champions League, then he should be starting for his country, shouldn't he? So and Ramsdale just isn't doing that. And some might say maybe would even be behind a couple other keepers. So, yeah, but great win for Arsenal. Main protagonist getting goals for them. Their group looks fairly straightforward for them as well, I think. So they'll be happy with that. But boys, let's move straight on and carry on with Arsenal, because coming up next is probably biggest game of the season so far. North London derby against Spurs. Two teams who've made great starts to the season. Spurs probably more surprising than Arsenal with just how good they are. But Lawro, come to you. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, may surprise a few people this one, but I do think Arsenal are going to win. As much as I love everything that's happening at Tottenham with the manager and the players, the way they're playing, etc., I think Arsenal are class. I'm a real big fan of what they're doing as well. And I think although a lot of their wins this season feel like they're grinding them out rather than blowing teams away, if you look beneath that, I think a lot of the football that they're playing is very, very good, and teams are having to try and contain, Everton being a prime example, and sometimes that can make it harder to get the 4 or 5 nils. But Arteta, I think, listens to the podcast because he has reverted back, hasn't he, to Gabriel and Saliba at centre half and put Ben White at right back. And I don't know why he wouldn't do that. Their defence was brilliant doing that last season. Zinchenko at left back, that's fine. But again, I think a massive thing for them, and at home, obviously, the onus is on them, particularly being title challengers. Are they going to go with Havertz in midfield, or are they going to change it as they did recently? Havertz played last night, didn't he? But they had been bringing in Vieira, I think, started at the weekend, didn't he? So he's obviously managing Havertz sort of introduction into the team. But it'd be interesting. Apparently, he had a really good game last night, Kai Havertz, and I would like to see the fruits of Arteta's labour with him in that kind of 8 role and him progress into a really good player, because it feels like he's been in the Prem ages now and not really done anything. So interested to see if he starts. Trossard looks really good every time he plays at the moment. I think he had another good game last night, scored an amazing goal against Everton at the weekend. And I just fancy them at home with the form they're in just to be a little bit better than Tottenham. But one thing I will just, before we go on to T-Gal's well thought out opinions, Son put out a I think I might have been on Football Tweet actually. He said something like, "Yeah, I wouldn't want to be Arsenal at the weekend because we're all running for everyone's running for each other, everyone's fighting for each other." And I just thought to myself, well, that clip probably shows you what was wrong with Spurs in the last 4 or 5 years when they haven't done anything, because that should be bare minimum, Sonny. And if you're only just realising that now, then just another, I think, doff of the cap to Ange Postecoglou for bringing a group of players together that didn't realise they had to run for each other. But yeah, I think it'll be a really good game, probably the most anticipated North London derby in a while. But I see Arsenal coming out on top in a lively one, like 3-2.
Tommo?
Yeah, look, it will be. It's a really tough game to call, isn't it? Because you've got, I sort of at the start of the week, I sort of edged Tottenham because they had the whole week to train for it, and obviously Arsenal had I thought it was a difficult fixture on paper in PSV, but the fact that they went and beat them 4-0 at home, it was a sort of it was an easy game in the end and sort of a perfect warm up for the North London derby. And I just had a quick look then. I think Arsenal have won the last 3 games at the Emirates against Tottenham. So you'd think that the home advantage would be a big thing. Tottenham obviously playing really well. It's difficult to call, but I'm sort of with Lawro. I do think Arsenal will edge it. The home record being the main reason. So I'm actually going to go exactly the same as Lawro, 3-2.
Nice. I agree with you. I thought that PSV would be a slightly harder game than what it was last night, and therefore a bit of midweek kind of game in the legs for Arsenal. But they were able to bring off Trossard, Zinchenko, Jesus, Saka, and Declan Rice last night, all within 70 minutes or 75 minutes. So Declan Rice being the last one to come off. So I think that they got the job done perfectly there. Great result for them. I think it's going to be 1-1 though. I think it's going to be one of those cagey games where neither side really want to lose. I think a North London derby loss would halt the momentum of both sides' seasons. I think it might be quite cagey in spells, and I just think neither manager would say that they would take it now. But I think if both had 1-1 and went on to the next one without a loss and moved on to I presume an easier fixture off the back of that, I think both might just take it. So I think 1-1 in that one. Just very quickly before we move on, boys, just as and obviously Lawro thinking about this from a Leeds perspective, Tommo United, but it might be Leeds and United's a good example for this actually. I saw that Son and Saka were having photos together at like was it London Fashion Week or Milan Fashion Week or something like that? In a build up to your biggest rivals kind of derby game, would you have any issues with your star player kind of sitting with the opposition star player having photos at Fashion Week, or not read too much into that?
I've not really, no. Like the sort of like the Premier League footballing community, like the players, they're in such a bubble now, aren't they? They only hang out with each other. Like the Man City players are friends with Man United players, and Liverpool players are friends. Do you know what I mean? They're all just mates, and I think the Sonny Saka one, I think they might be sponsored by Burberry or something ridiculous like that. So I ain't got no issues with it. I mean, I know Twitter sort of jump on it and stuff, but nah, it's not that. It's not that deep, bruv. It's not that deep.
Yeah. It's moved on. That's just what football's like these days. But back in the day, I think it would have been an interesting proposition to see Lee Bowyer sat by Jason Park's side at London Fashion Week before a big across the Pennines derby. But I don't. It's not like it used to be, is it? They're all mates with each other, aren't they? And I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, boys, intrigued to see that one. Can't wait to watch that on Sunday. We'll move on. Another fairly big game actually in regards to positions in the table. Liverpool in third, host sixth place West Ham. Probably looks like a home win for Liverpool of how they started, but been made a little bit spicier by Mikel Antonio's comments on his podcast. I think he said that he backs himself against Liverpool and fancies West Ham to finish above them this year. Tommo, do you give West Ham much hope at Anfield?
I'm just having a look at their previous results at Anfield, and they've lost 6 in a row, West Ham. So it's a big shout from Mikel Antonio on his podcast. I know I listened to that, and if they were playing at home, I would fancy West Ham for for the sort of home advantage. But yeah, it'd be a difficult one for them. But you never know. Like it's going to be basically Liverpool keeping the ball and West Ham sitting in, and we know West Ham like to do that. But yeah, look, listen, I predict a comfortable Liverpool win. I'm going to go 2-0, and I think Darwin Núñez will start and score.
Everyone listening to this podcast, empty your wallets and put it all on draw. I guarantee you that game is a draw. I guarantee it. There is no way Mikel Antonio can make those kind of comments and come away with nothing. But I think we've got to face up to the fact that I think to beat Liverpool at Anfield, you've got to score 3, really. And I don't think West Ham are going to do that. So, and if they do, I think Liverpool will too. So, is it on telly, that one? There's loads at 2:00, isn't there? I don't think it is. So no one's going to be able to watch it. But I guarantee you now it will be a draw. And if I had to tell you which one it would be a Desmond. But I don't have much more insight into other than what Tommo's just said. You expect Liverpool are obviously favourites, but Antonio's got a lot of backing up to do now, and I can't see him walking out of Anfield without anything on Sunday. So, 1,000,000% a draw.
Yeah, can I tell a quick rant actually about that? So Sky, in their wisdom, have decided to choose Sheffield United versus Newcastle at 4:30 instead of Liverpool West Ham. It's absolutely insane. And I know actually the reports this week are that they'll start doing a 6:30 Sky Sports or BT Sport game on TV. So hopefully that comes quickly, because Jesus. Oh, and do you know what? Actually, I know a couple of Newcastle fans listen to this podcast, and it pisses me off how often they're on TV. Like, why are they on TV? Sheffield United away. It's a terrible game.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I completely agree. I'd only say that, we've got 4 games on at 2:00 on Sunday, but this evening you've got Liverpool and West Ham both in Europa League, Aston Villa in Conference League, Brighton in Europa League. So I'd imagine that Arsenal, Tottenham, and Sheffield United, Newcastle was initially Super Sunday, and then all of these Europa League fixtures have moved over. But yeah,
so they've moved over from 3 p.m. haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, so Liverpool West Ham, you then might say, why is it a 3 p.m. Saturday game?
Yeah.
Based on what the Saturday TV games are. So, I mean, we discuss it every week, don't I? I imagine each team's got to have a certain quota of games, but Newcastle seems to be every single game. Yeah, indeed. Right. So I think with that one, I think Liverpool will win that. I think they'll win it fairly handsomely as long as they come through this evening unscathed, injury-wise, barring any major injuries. But looks like Salah's not playing. They got Diaz and Nunes, and they've got Endo, Gravenbach, Harvey Elliott. So Robertson's not playing. Tsimikas is. So looks like they're resting up a fair few of them. Their players in Europa League, so I don't think they'll be too fatigued. I think West Ham will have to go stronger tonight, and therefore think Liverpool will dominate that game and we win quite handsomely. Moving on to another game on Sunday. So 14th place Chelsea host 7th place Villa. I actually don't really give Chelsea much of a hope in this game beyond the fact that Villa are playing tonight. I know that that's absolutely ludicrous, but we obviously talked earlier in the week in length about the fixtures and the Opta fixtures for the first 5 games, and Chelsea having the easiest ones. I just fancy Villa to go to Stamford Bridge, run all over them. Chelsea are toothless in front of goal. And I really don't think it would be any sort of shock if Villa went and won at Stamford Bridge. Tommo?
Yeah, I agree. They beat Chelsea at the end of last season, didn't they, at Stamford Bridge 2-0. And I'm going to go for something similar. Like, what I will say is, though, we are recording this podcast before we've seen their starting 11 for tonight's game in Poland, and because you sort of think that they would play not like the backups, but sort of they'd make a few changes.
Do you want that lineup, Tommo?
Oh, has it come out? Is it? Go on.
Yeah, it's not in position for it, but I'll read through the list that you got here. Leon Bailey, Callum Chambers, Luca Digne, Duran, Kamara, Konza, Longley, Emi Martinez, John McGinn, Yuri Tielemans, and Zaniolo.
So just quickly from that, so they've made 5 or 6 changes from their sort of starting 11, which makes me think that they'll go to Stamford Bridge on Sunday and win comfortably.
Yeah, no Matty Cash, no Diaby, no Douglas Luiz, no Jacob Ramsey, no Pau Torres, no Ollie Watkins in that starting 11.
Yeah, so yeah, I just think Musa Diaby and Ollie Watkins, right? He's been in my FPL team since day one, and he's basically an assist merchant, and I've had a couple of issues in my team this week, so I can't take him out again. So, but it feels like he's gonna blow at some stage. So hopefully he gets a brace on Sunday at Stamford Bridge. That's my prediction, 2-0.
I've just told everyone to empty their wallets on the draw in the Liverpool game somewhat abruptly. Cash out, right? And have a look at Aston Villa's odds to beat Chelsea on Sunday.
Go on.
3-1.
Wow.
3-1. Aston Villa are better than Chelsea. Even on paper, I think they're better than Chelsea. The only good thing I can see about this for Chelsea is because they're so crap at breaking teams down and putting the ball in the back of the net, I don't think Villa go there with any respect. Most teams will go to Chelsea, won't they? Years gone by, or even this season, Forest, for instance, go sit behind the ball and try and break. I don't think Villa do that. I think Villa play this like a game that they should win, and maybe that will leave a little bit more space for Chelsea to expose going forward. I think there'll be goals in that game. Funnily enough, considering it's Chelsea, but yeah, I fancy Villa. Like, God knows where they've got that price of 3-1. Get everything on it.
So I think so far, if you were to get West Ham, Liverpool draw and a double with Villa to win at Chelsea, you're starting to make some serious money there.
18.5 to 1.
Wowzers! Which, if I emptied my wallet, would mean I'd get about 180 quid back. So happy days. So yeah, I think full house there, boys. Villa to win at Chelsea, and I don't think it's a shock, as I called earlier. Moving on, so we're unfortunately have to come back and visit United, Tommo. So 8 p.m. on Saturday, we go to Turf Moor. 19th place Burnley take on 13th place United. Vincent Kompany's kind of come out today and said he knows how Eric Ten Hag feels about losing games at a big club. Obviously, with him being at Anderlecht, who are a big club in that league, but also at City for the years and the pressure that comes with losing games. But I can't really think of a fixture where 2 managers need more of a win than this one. It seems like Burnley are desperate for 3 points, but I don't think Ten Hag can go and lose another game in a row.
No, you are right. I don't actually think there's that much pressure on Company, to be honest. Obviously, he will be putting some pressure on himself. I don't know what you boys thought of Monday Night Football, but I thought Burnley looked better. They brought in Charlie Taylor and Josh Brownhill to the starting 11. A little bit of experience, shored up a bit. They look better, basically. And my prediction for this game will be 2-2 draw. I just think United look feeble, basically. They look very vulnerable. So I think Burnley will get some joy against us. But also, we've got Hojlund, Rashford, and Bruno Fernandes. So I think we'll get a couple goals, but I think we'll concede. I can just see sort of Erik Ten Hag after the game in the post-match press conference sort of trying to dress it up as a bit of a positive that we've gone to Burnley and drew. But I'm looking forward to that game, to be honest. I'm not really sure why it's Saturday at 8 p.m, but Mrs. isn't too happy about it either. But I'm looking forward to that game. Just hope we get some sort of positive result as a United fan.
Lawro?
Yeah, I mean, and I quote T-Gal, we've got Hojlund, Rashford and Bruno. That just won't cut it. I hate the game for you. I hate it, especially at Turf Moor. I just, like you said, they were better on Monday night. They looked more organised. They brought Charlie Taylor back in for the worst left back that I've ever seen in the Premier League. Can't remember his name. New lad that was playing for Burnley before. Terrible. One saving grace is obviously Lyle Foster will be injured because he's their leading man at the moment.
Suspended, you mean? But suspended, yeah.
What did I say?
Injured, sorry.
Sorry, he'll be out. My mistake, Tigo. Amdouni, Craig Bellamy's come out and said Amdouni is levels and levels and levels. And I think he was doing bits at a club in Europe before. So I feel like they've turned the corner and they'll be looking at Man United thinking, fancy that. Fancy 3 points there. And United I didn't want to bash them too much for losing 4-3 in Bayern Munich, but let's look at the Premier League performances. It's a bit soft-centred at the moment, isn't it? And I don't think we've got Hojlund, Bruno and Rashford's quite going to cut it at a Larry Turf Moor under the lights on Saturday night against a revved-up Claret side.
Do you know what's funny about that is when I was reeling off Rashford, Hojlund, and then I was thinking of the right winger that we were going to play, and I was like, who are we going to play? And I was like, oh, well, better just name Bruno then. So that says it all, really. I was struggling to think of 3 attacking great players for United.
Rashford on his last chance saloon in my fantasy football team. Fraud.
And mine 100%. His body language has looked absolutely terrible so far this season in just large spells, and I thought the same of it yesterday as well. So I will just say on that game, chaps, that I'm going to try and have a bit of a positive spin because I'm so negative about United. It looks like Varane and Mount have been training and will be coming back in and didn't travel to Munich to concentrate on getting fit for that game. I don't know if Amrabat's going to come back in, but he's back training on grass. Kobe Mainu, look, he's really young. I think he's going to be part of the plans, though. He's starting to come in, which will be another midfield option. Hojlund's looked very bright so far in his time. He maybe should have scored against Brighton, had his one disallowed, looked bright against Arsenal, scored last night in the Allianz. Hopefully he can get a bit of a run and start him and Rashford start to build a bit of a partnership. And Reguilon looked better than expected going forward, albeit, as I said earlier, have conceded 7-2, and he's one of the defenders. So I'm trying to just have a bit of a positive spin on United, and I'm just hoping that, as I said earlier, it's one of those games where there's not too much to talk about. We've just won 2-0 and it was fairly comfortable. Laura?
Yeah, just to go back to negativity around Man United. I think it was Graham Souness. Interesting comment made this week. Don't know if you've heard it. He said, one of the reasons it's so hard to score as a striker for Man United is because on one wing, you've got Rashford, who all he wants to do is cut in and shoot all the time. Obviously, he's a right footer and he'll only play on the left. And he hates playing on the right. And one of those reasons, I think he said something about he doesn't know how to do the runs properly, but it's probably because he's got less chance of scoring. And now that you've got problems over on the right wing, where either your winger's banged up or exiled or whatever, or training with the Rezzies, you've got a weak winger on that side as well. Do you agree with that Rashford's detrimental in terms of the striking options at Man United?
Yeah, I do actually. I think that if you have a team where wingers are your main men, so let's go back to the Liverpool side, you then have to have a striker who isn't scoring goals in Firmino or only scoring a few, and he's selfless in the work he does for Mane and Salah. Even Man City last year, albeit Haaland got off to a very different start, you'd have games, wouldn't you, where like Foden didn't square one to Haaland for his hat trick, and Pep would come out and say, "Oh no, my wingers need to get used now to having a striker back in the box." They had that little period in between Aguero, didn't they, where they were playing like a Sterling, a false nine, or a Foden, a false nine. And I think that we haven't got a winger on that right hand side at the minute. I don't know what this Palestri is going to be like. He's young. We probably can't start thinking about that right now. We haven't got someone on that right wing who's going to cross the ball in for the striker. And as you say, you've got Rashford, who all he wants to do is cut in and bang it, not square it across the box. He's talked, Annie, with Gary Neville about how he wants to chase down Rooney's record and be 30 goal a season, which if you're a striker in the middle means that your winger's then not going to be passing to you because he's hell bent on scoring himself. So yeah, I think it's a really actually well thought out point from someone who's I normally don't respect the opinion of in Graham Souness.
Can I just stick up for Rashford a little bit, just because, yeah, I do agree that he does do that a lot, but last season there was a heavy over-reliance on Rashford doing that basically every game. We've not really had a proper striker, have we, for a long time. You're looking at Weghorst last year, at the end of last year. So Rashford obviously sort of changed his game, or maybe he's always been like that, but where basically he feels like the responsibility is all on him. So now we've got Hojlund, who obviously there's a lot of potential there, but so maybe it'll be just a case of them two getting used to each other, Rashford getting used to his runs, and then potentially over the course of the season, we'll see Rashford become more of a traditional winger who will chip in with goals and obviously assist Hojlund. But definitely one to watch. There was one little situation in the Bayern game where he sort of cut back onto his right foot, and all he had to do was sort of cross it in quite hard for Hojlund, and he whipped it as a shot, and the goalkeeper saved it. And I just thought that is a good example of what you're saying there, Lawro, or what Graham Souness was saying. But yeah, look, give it time, give Rashford time. I do agree with you about his body language. It looks like he's thought, I've signed that 5-year deal, 350 grand a week. That's me done for a couple seasons. But at the same time, he is our most sort of electric player at the minute, and we need him. We rely on him.
One thing that I do think we might try in the coming weeks, if Amrabat's going to come in next to Casemiro and then Bruno, I think Mason Mount might play out on the right hand side for United, and then he might be someone who then is getting the ball into the box for the striker. I'll be interested to see if we try that. I know we had some success doing it at Chelsea, albeit we did sign him as a centre midfielder. I think, if we're honest, I think Amrabat's been a reactionary signing based off our midfield display so far. But I think he might go out there for a bit, so potentially he might be a good link up for Hojlund out there. But yeah, as I say, I'm just hoping that we can go through and be on Monday's pod where we're just like job done for United, 2-0, go on to now. I think we got Palace back to back in the League Cup and then the league before Galatasaray. I just want like a month now of just chill out for United, where we're not doing this every week about another drama and another injury. Boys, move on then. Man City, obviously top of the table as they always are, but they've got Forest coming to them, who've given some spirited away performances at Arsenal and United, albeit not got anything. Monday Night Football, I thought they probably should have got all three against Burnley, and we are obviously head fans of Teo Womney and Morgan Gibbs-White. Can anyone give me any reason why Forest might get something at the Etihad?
Absolutely not. I've just had a look there, and if you cast your mind back to last August, last year, in the same fixture, City won 6-0. Yeah, Erling Haaland got a hat-trick, and Julian Alvarez scored 2. And I think I might bet on that sort of same thing, sort of 6-0, Alvarez brace, Haaland hat-trick. I just think they'll be too strong. And that's the sort of only insight I've got to offer into that game.
Well, normally once a season, City will have a random one at home that they lose. Do you remember like Townsend that won the volley? And I think Everton got a point there last year. I can't remember anyone. Brentford beat them last year, get better side. They normally lose one or two that you don't like. If they lose at home, it ain't normally like to Arsenal, it's to like Forest. Do you know what I mean? Not them, but a team of that caliber.
Yeah.
So if you wanted me to build a case for Steve Cooper's men going there and getting something, that would be it. Probably law of averages. They haven't lost a point yet. And they've got good attacking players. We talk about Morgan Gibbs-White and Awoniyi. Callum Hudson-Odoi had a good game on Monday as well and looked quite lively. And they've got Alanga as well. So, I don't know if he's injured now, but a lot of pace and sort of flair going forward, but it's at the other end, isn't it? They're just too hot to handle City, and probably like you say, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-0.
And it does feel like before you move on, it does feel like Haaland's sort of waiting to get that hat trick again, isn't he? Because you're saying he's missed quite a lot of chances in the last 2 games, and even though City have won those 2 games, as a striker, you know it, Murph. Like he'll be going home pissed off, won't he? Because he's only scored 1, and he obviously didn't score against Red Star. So
Yeah,
isn't it mental? Go on.
I was just going to say I didn't really think it would be me delving into the mindset of Erling Haaland and being spoken about in the same category. But yeah, as a fellow striker, yeah, if I miss 3 or 4, I do tend to be a bit pissed off at home, regardless of if we've won.
That's what I was going to say, though. With a normal striker, it's like, they'll be pissed off. They haven't scored in 2 or 3 games, like maybe Ollie Watkins, like desperate to get a goal. With Haaland, it's, he'll be pissed off he ain't got a hat trick. The cheek of that. But that's how it is with him, isn't it? And that's why, I never want to talk about it. If I speak, I'm in big trouble.
They just a couple points on that. Going back to that clip, if I'll send it to you boys to watch, and maybe Tommo, you can get it up on Footy Tweet for our listeners. But it's got to be at least 15 chances that Haaland would probably take across 2 games normally. And that's just scary that he's getting that service in and out. And I think there was someone who quote tweeted it saying about other strikers in the Prem would need 10 fixtures to get those amount of chances. He just has constant service. And so he only needs to score 2 of them.
But he also has teleportation. He just appears, doesn't he? Like you don't ever see him. He just appears at the right place at the right time. It's like whack. One little mistake, it's in the roof of the net before the commentators even had a chance to tell us what's happening. It's a complete embarrassment and joke.
And what's really, really frustrating as well is, as a United fan and a football fan, you want nothing but City to drop points and lose. But then Tommo goes, they won 6-0 in this fixture last year. Haaland got a brace, and Haaland got a hattie, and Alvarez got a brace. And I'm sat there looking at my FPL strikers, both of them up there, thinking, we'll have a bit of that. But that's life as FPL, unfortunately. We're supporting a Prem team. Boys, we'll move on to the rest of the fixtures. 11th place Brentford hosts 18th place Everton. Everton obviously absolutely desperate for a win there. I'd imagine Sean Dyche on thin ice. Just very, very quickly, I fancy Brentford to win that. Any other thoughts from you boys?
Brentford win for me. Brentford win.
Me too.
Yeah, for clean sweep there. 19th place Sheffield United. Host 12th place Newcastle. I mean, the only thing you could say about that is Newcastle had a tricky fixture midweek and they did look really leggy. Isak looked leggy, Longstaff looked leggy, but they've got that squad rotation that they can bring, can't they, to maybe get something at Sheffield United.
Yeah, the only thing
I think that's.
Go on. I was going to say the only thing I've got to add to that game is that it shouldn't be on TV. It should be nowhere near TV. But Sheffield United looks like they. I know they've lost a few, and they got beat at Tottenham last week. But Gus Hamer's looking good, isn't he? And they got Cameron Archer, so you never know. You never know.
No, I think that's a big point about that. They didn't look leggy. They looked absolutely fucked, didn't they? At the end of that AC Milan game. And after the sort of Heckenbottom drama over the weekend stuff, they'll be fired right off that. That's a horrible fixture. I wouldn't be surprised if the Blades win that.
Yeah, that interesting game. I fancy Newcastle personally, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them slip up there. Fifth place Brighton host 15th place Bournemouth. Brighton be looking to get another victory there. I fancy them to go on and do that and extend their good form, but they are playing again tonight in Europa League, and I know that De Zerbi said how buzzing the squad is to be playing in that fixture. So it'll be interesting to see if their league form takes a bit of a dip. But I think we spoke on the last podcast, didn't we, that they seem to not have full strength out against United and we're still class above. So he looks like he's got all those players playing in that squad.
Yeah, Murph, just quickly. The only
yeah,
thing
go on.
we'll say about Brighton is that they do have like a weird result in them, don't they? Like where they obviously already lost to West Ham this season, and at the end of last season they got spun, didn't they, by Everton? Was that 5-1 or 5-0 or something ridiculous? So you just don't know how these players are going to react to the Thursday, Sunday sort of like games of the Europa League. So you never know, but we'll see. That's a good fixture, to be fair, because even though Bournemouth haven't got the results that they've potentially their performances have warranted, they've looked half decent under their new manager. So that's a good fixture.
Yeah, I'm going Brighton to win that fairly handsomely, and Estepinian, Matoma, and Ferguson really need to get me out of the shit if possible. And then just the other two fixtures, guys, probably last on match of the day, barring a barnstormer of a game. 9th place Palace take on 10th place Fulham. Both made great starts this season, I think, based on their league positions. London derby, I guess, but I fancy that to be a low score draw. And then trying to think if there's a worse fixture in the league this year. Can't. 20th place Luton hosts 16th place Wolves, which apparently, if it's goalless match of the day, have said they're just not even going to bother with. They're just going to drag it completely because it's just offensive to even show it. But obviously, I'm not going to change my thoughts on Luton going down, least points ever. Wolves will probably be looking at that thinking we've got to win that. That is a must win for them if they've got aspirations of staying up. We'll move on to the Championship. Laura, I'm going to come straight to you to preview and review Leeds. So last night, while everyone else was watching Bayern Munich 4, Manchester United 3, you were watching Hull 0, Leeds 0. Is that correct?
I was indeed. I was watching that with great intrigue and vigour. And I was, again, very happy with Daniel Farke's men. Let me throw some stats at you about this game. 17 shots for Leeds, 4 on target. And that was the story of the game. We absolutely dominated it until the 60th minute when Joe Rodon, who I think is one of the best centre-backs I've ever seen in the Championship, based on the few games I've seen him play for Leeds, having a great game, goes and gets the second yellow card. It was one of them where the first one was never a yellow, but then you got to be careful, and the second one was, and he was gone. So most annoying thing about that is that was a game we would have won, probably, if he had stayed on. And also, he's going to miss Watford at home at the weekend now. But I thought it was a really good display again. Rutter missed a gilt-edged 1-on-1 that he should have scored. But if anyone wants to watch the highlights of that game, in the 89th minute, and this is why it was a good point in the end for Leeds, Hull City missed the worst chance you'll ever see. I think it might have been you, Teagal, at Football Tweet, or one of your rivals, did a compilation of the worst misses in history the other day, and this would have won it. It was honestly point-blank range, played across goal, the keeper was nowhere, and he hit the post. And that was as good as a goal for us. So another really good performance, although it may not look like it. But remember, Hull turned over Leicester this year away from home. They're a good side, and yeah, it's a really good point if we go and beat Watford at the weekend.
So you have Watford at the weekend are in 14th. They had a 2-2 draw with West Brom, but both those sides are flattering to deceive so far. Must be fancying Leeds to put them to the sword and score some goals at the weekend then.
Yeah, I just it's so annoying that Rodon's out because he's looked really good. But Liam Cooper come on for him, so it's probably going to be Liam Cooper and Pascal Strout, which you'd hope would be enough for Watford at home. But they've got a bit of quality in their team, and like I said, flatter to deceive. They really should be higher in terms of looking at their team. Really weird though with Watford. You know how bad they are with sacking managers, and this time last season they sacked Rob Edwards after giving him like a 5-year deal or whatever, and saying he'll be our manager forever. This year they've had what I would probably say is a worse start, and Valerie Ishmael, and they're talking about giving him like an updated contract already, and he signed in the summer. So scattergun from them. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they know what they're doing at Vicarage Road at the moment. So I would definitely anticipate us beating them at the weekend. But I will just say Leicester played Norwich last night at Carrow Road, and I was really, really thinking that would be a home win, to be honest with you. You can't just beat everyone in the Championship, but a little bit worried about that because you can't be brushing Norwich aside 2-0 away from home on a Tuesday, Wednesday night. So, yeah, fancy Leeds at the weekend. Pleased with them last night. Slightly worried about how good Leicester are.
Yeah, I coming on to them actually. As you say, beat Norwich 2-0 last night. Great result for them. But they do host informed Bristol City, are up to 5th now. They seem to be climbing up through the table. So team fairly close to us. Hopefully they can go and get something at Leicester, but they do look really strong.
Nigel Pearson back to his old club as well. So a little bit of beef on that one.
Yeah, hopefully they can get something Bristol City and just make it interesting. Preston go to Rotherham. I think that'll be another 3 points for Preston, albeit you can never bank too much on the Championship, and that's the type of game where Rotherham will suddenly go and get something. But yeah, Tommo, you must have done some research because you want to come in.
Yeah, to be fair, I did on Preston just because obviously they won again, 19 points from a possible 21. Ryan Lowe doing a great job there. But so I tried to basically do a little bit of research to see how their stats sort of compared to their results. And basically they're sort of outperforming their stats quite a lot, to be fair. I just had a look at, I know you love the XG stats, Lawro, so I'll give you this one. They're basically I think maybe 19th out of the whole Championship for XG, which is expected goals, which means they're not creating an awful lot, but they're doing really well to take those chances. They've basically got an XG of 6.82 and they've scored 12. So, and we were talking before the pod, Laura, they've made their 3 big sort of summer signings, which was Dwayne Holmes, who was it? Will Keane, and this Mads Frokje Jensen, and they've all done really well for them. Will Keane scored 4 goals and got 1 assist in 5 Championship games. Obviously a bit of a Man United link there, so nice to see him doing well. And it's just nice to see a sort of a team who don't expect to be up there doing so well. And obviously we spoke a lot, haven't we, in the previous pods about how strong the Championship is this season. So it's nice to see them top the table, and they haven't been in the top flight for 63 years. So long may it continue. And like you said, they've got Rotherham on the weekend. I think let me just quickly get it up because I had their fixtures up just now. They've got at home to West Brom, which is, you'd say they're both winnable games, and then they've got a big one away at Leicester. So that'll be the one potentially where you're looking at it going, that'll really test their title credentials or their promotion credentials. But yeah, onwards and upwards for Preston.
Thanks, Tigo. And I will just say on Preston as well, it's a good example of, I say about the managers in the Championship, longevity is important. Sort of early to the middle of last season, maybe all throughout last season, a lot of Preston fans getting on Ryan Lowe's back, maybe not the most exhilarating brand of football, but when you're not competing financially with the big boys in the league, you need to find a way to win, and that's what he does. And if they can make it more 1-0s this season than 0-0s, they will find themselves up there, and they could be able to do a Luton or something like that. I don't think they'll sustain it enough to beat the likes of Leicester and Leeds and maybe even like your Norwiches and Sunderland, who are impressing me at the moment. But I think they could be that team like your Luton, maybe like your Coventry a little bit, who get into the playoffs this year. So thanks for the Preston segment.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, and yeah, it'd be good for you to just have sort of Preston corner for the rest of the season. So they do go to Leicester soon, and then straight after they go to Ipswich, another side that are absolutely flying. They won at Saints 1-0 midweek. McKenna obviously was spoken about. I don't know if you guys saw Ollie's interview that he's done, but he spoke about Carrick and McKenna and how much he rates them as coaches, which is fine endorsement from a caliber of Ollie. But he thinks that he's going to be a future Prem manager. Potential back-to-back promotion for Ipswich, Lawro?
Yeah, do you know who he reminds me of? Kieran McKenna, Eddie Howe. And I know there's similarities with Eddie Howe taking Bournemouth through the leagues, notwithstanding his Burnley hiatus. And it's not just because he's gone from League One and now he's doing really well in the Championship, but he's got that kind of calm presence of mind, that quiet sort of disposition, and you can see he's that kind of manager. And I can just see him maybe being the next one, whether it's with Ipswich. I don't think Ipswich will get promoted this year. I think they'll find it hard as the season progresses with the squad that they've got. But I can just see him being one of those sort of Eddie Howe type characters that end up getting a good Premier League job and then really impressing again, because he kind of speaks well, doesn't mince his words, he's careful with what he says, and obviously he can get the tune out of a team. So impressive in League One with Ipswich, but they're a massive club there. At the moment, they're not a huge club in the Championship, I wouldn't say, although historically they are quite a good side. But I think, getting a tune out of Ipswich in the Championship and literally losing only to the best team the Championship's ever seen, Daniel Farke's Leeds, is a very good start for them.
The biggest worry, if I was an Ipswich fan, the biggest worry would be when the sort of Premier League manager turnover starts. So if, say, for instance, if Burnley's poor run continues and they decide to get rid of Company, or if Wolves continue to sort of plummet and then they decide to get rid of Gary O'Neill, you're looking at Kieran McKenna, who would be quite a cheap option, and obviously he'd be up there right in the top of their list for a new manager, wouldn't he? Because he's impressing so much.
Yeah, I even think and I completely agree that is a potential issue for them, even like Luton with Rob Edwards. But then you'd probably say, is it worth just staying at the Championship side in Ipswich and trying to go up with them? But it might be other clubs that are big in stature in the Championship. So Middlesbrough play Saints this weekend. Two managers in Michael Carrick and Russell Martin, who we've spoken about quite a bit, who are desperate for a win. Ipswich are obviously have been a big club before, been in the Prem and doing well, but you can maybe see someone like Southampton going, do you know what? Maybe if we get rid of Russell Martin, could try and bring McKenna in as well. So you're probably right that's one thing they need to. Their biggest issue, Ipswich, is keeping hold of McKenna and maybe some of their players that are doing the business for them. So be interested to see how that pans out. But yeah, I think Michael Carrick and Russell Martin both be absolutely desperate for all three this weekend. Otherwise, could be some interesting conversations had at board level with them. Right, boys, we'll move on to League One then. So Portsmouth had an impressive victory midweek at Barnsley. They host Lincoln. Will obviously be looking to take all three there. Probably the most interesting fixture of the weekend is Oxford versus Exeter, which is fourth place versus second. And Lawro, Oxford, a side that you've spoken about before, looks like they're starting to pick up form and do the business.
Yeah, and they've got Russell Martin's previous understudy and Liam Manning as their manager, and got the bullet at MK Dons because of a poor start to the season last year. But I thought it was a clever pickup from Oxford, because they're a team that I always associate with good football, good players. They've always got good attacking players, and they've signed some this summer as well. Particularly Ruben Rodriguez, who was in the National League, who we know all about with Notts County last season. And it just felt like they weren't that bad under Carl Robinson. It was one of them where it come to the end of the cycle and the fans just wanted something new. And I think they just picked exactly the right one. They've made some sensible additions and throughout the summer, and I fancy them to crack on. I don't think they'll win the league, but I think they'll be right up there.
Good stuff. And then,
go on. Interesting thing about that game is that I know it was probably their Rezzies, but Exeter lost 9-0, didn't they, to Reading in the week in the EFL Trophy. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from that.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that result. Didn't realise you'd kept an eye on the EFL Trophy.
And do you know what? Do you know what? Actually, because I know you guys take the piss out of me when we do this EFL segment, but I was just looking at the League One league there, the league table, and I think that's the most interesting league table out of the lot, because Portsmouth are winning the league 16 points out from 8 games, so no one's sort of running away with it and dominating. There's only 3 points separating first and 9th. And that's what I love about the EFL, isn't it? Especially, like, I always, you just feel like everyone's got a chance of qualifying for the playoff. Do you know what I mean? And it seems like in League One, everyone's got a chance of winning the league already.
Just quickly on that, one team that don't have a chance of winning the league is Cheltenham. So they sacked their manager, Wade Elliott, this week. 1 point from the first 8 games and no goals. Imagine being a Robin, just going every week. If you're home and away, you've not seen 1 goal, and we're nearly in October. Sorry, Wade, that's not good enough.
I think obviously Tommo's your man for the Papa John's trophy, but their only goal this season was in a 4-1 loss at Bristol Rovers. So I can only imagine the limbs in that game when Bristol Rovers scored an own goal to keep it 3-1. It's not looking good for Cheltenham. But as Tommo says, Portsmouth 16 points, and then Stevenage in 5th on 15 points, so a point separating top 5. I guess that's why 3 points means so much in that league. Laurie, just before we move on from League One, just an interesting one actually. 23rd place Fleetwood go to Burton in 22nd, but they did go and win at Port Vale, who are in 3rd midweek. But some familiar faces at Fleetwood for people from Yeovil.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, probably Yeovil's best ever central midfield partnership in history, certainly in my lifetime, is Lee Johnson and Darren Way, who have taken up the helm at Highbury for Fleetwood. And I was reading the comments, right, upon the Lee Johnson appointment, and he gets so much crap from clubs that he's been at before. It's unbelievable. So I'm just going to stick up for him a bit here, right? This is, from what I remember, this is Lee Johnson's managerial path so far. And obviously his dad's a successful manager as well, got 3 promotions with Yeovil. So he went in at Oldham about 10 years ago, struggling like fuck, kept him up. Big Matt Smith was scoring goals. Barnsley are impressed, they pick him up. He goes to Barnsley, does really well, and towards the end of that, he wins 8 games in a row, I think it was, gets him into the playoffs. But before the end of the season, Bristol City pick him up. And he's got a big sort of affiliation with that club, and he had to go. Barnsley ended up getting promoted. So he saved Oldham, and he put all the foundations in place to get Barnsley up. Then he spends 5 or 6 years at Bristol City, for me, punching above their weight, because they're not normally a team that you'd associate. They're more of a League One Championship team. They've never been in the Premier League. They've got no right to think they're going to be right up there. And although he didn't get them in the playoffs, I thought he did a really good job there. And they always gave Leeds a game. So I think he was unlucky to probably get to the end of the cycle. The fans got fed up with him, so they ended up parting ways after quite a good few years there. Goes to Sunderland again, doesn't do a bad job, but the first sign of a losing run gets axed. But I think they were in the playoffs, and they ended up getting promoted as well. And then hands up, I've got no defence for his poor stint at Hibs. But what can you do in Scotland if you're going to Hibs? Right? What's the goal? You ain't winning. You ain't getting anywhere near the top 2. So the best you can do is hope to come 3rd. And it's just a horrible place to play football up there as well. So no excuse for Hibs, albeit I think that was a poor choice in the first place. But what I'm saying is I think Fleetwood have got a very good manager, particularly for the bottom half of a League One club. They've got some good players there as well. They've got, I think they've got Kabonga Shiamango on loan at the moment as well from Peterborough, who've just gone there from non-league. So be interesting to see if he can get them firing. But he's going to have to, because he's been sacked a few times now, and if it ends up getting sacked up at Fleetwood as well, that could be the writing on the wall. But a good, still young manager that I think's got a lot more to give.
Yeah, good luck to Lee and Darren at Fleetwood. We'll be monitoring your results, being ex-Yeovil, as we always do with other players such as Paul Warne, whose Derby side go to Carlisle this week. And
Come on, Paul, you got to win.
How keep saying it.
Seamless.
I can't keep saying it, Paul. You've got to win.
You must win, Paul.
And then just another fixture in League One to look out for, boys. Bolton versus Peterborough, 7th v 8th. As Tommo says, not many points in it up there. So 2 decent sides, and both will be looking to move up into the playoffs with a victory there. Moving on to League Two quickly. So Gillingham, who are in first place, take on 22nd place Doncaster at home. So looks like a nice home banker there for People's Accas. Adding to that, Notts County in second place go to 21st place Forest Green. So potentially 2 teams there to add in it who've made good starts. Most interesting fixture of the weekend, I think, is Stockport versus Wrexham. So Stockport unbeaten in their last 3, and Wrexham, who haven't actually lost since the first game of the season against MK Dons. They'll be looking to go to Stockport and get a result, but that looks like a fairly good game. One team in League Two, just to mention, Salford have now lost 4 in a row in the league. They've got Harrogate at the weekend, but looks like they need to win or could be time up for Neil Wood. I'd imagine Gary Neville and the boys are starting to have conversations about that because they've always got aspirations to go up. But yeah, be interesting to see if they can.
Just a quick one on that is, obviously Gary Neville's making a name for himself at the minute of blaming absolutely everything on the Glazers at United. So I wonder if he's taking the same approach at Salford, where the players aren't playing well, the manager's not doing well, and maybe he blames himself.
Yeah, good point, actually. I'd imagine if Carra gets hold of that trail of thought, then Neville could be in for a bit of a rough time of it. But yeah, I mean, I guess for Salford, they've started from grassroots and come up. They've not, they've got a bit of a fan base, albeit they've kind of been created by the local community. But I mean, now they're up into League Two. I wonder what the aspirations are up for there and what level of money actually the class of 92 have against other just teams in League One, League Two that have got decent money, albeit Wrexham have got different level money. I think they've maybe just starting to reach their level now, Salford. Like, I don't know if they've got the cash and funds to be going up through the leagues there. So they might have bottomed out a bit there and might just need to stabilise in the EFL.
They did get to the playoff semi-final last year, though. So matey in charge there. I think he's like, isn't he an old United coach or something like that?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah.
So I feel like Gary Neville's been on record before saying I can't remember which manager it was, but he's been quick to sack like Richie Wellens, Graham Alexander, maybe Gary Bowyer as well. Maybe he's just going to go the other way this time and see if he can leave it and see if it sorts itself out. But I agree with you. There's lots of competition financially, even at League Two level now. So it's not going to be easy for them to progress like it was through non-league.
Yeah, and as you say, with Notts County, Wrexham coming up and looking so strong, and then teams like Gillingham looking good as well. I don't think Salford will have much opportunity to climb up the league this year and go up, but we will see with that one. And then we'll just quickly touch on Yeovil as we always do. So this weekend they go to Hampton and Richmond. I had a little look at Yeovil actually, just because of the sheer amount of goals that they've been scoring after scoring 7 in the FA Cup. Yeovil are now 6th in the table. They're 3 points off of top. They've scored 17 goals in their last 5 games, which Yeovil can't have done in probably a decade. Hampton and Richmond 21st in the table. Laura, that's got to be all 3, Anna.
Yeah. And like I just said with Leeds last week, I think it's time to kick on now. I think it will be with Yeovil. And the really good thing is we have been winning with 3 points off top. And I think it's a common theme amongst fans that we think we haven't really got going yet, but we're still too good for everyone, I think, or most teams will be too good for on the day. And when we're playing Eastbourne Borough in the previous fixture, and our substitutes bench is Reece Murphy, Jake Hyde, Jordan Stevens, Jordan Maguire, Drew, and Charlie Cooper, at that level, they'd all start in most National League teams. I just think it's a scary prospect, and I think Hampton and Richmond on Saturday are going to be in for an absolute drumming. I was right about it for Leeds last week at Millwall, and I'm praying to God that it will be the same at Hampton and Richmond, and I will be there. So I'll report back to you on Monday what it's like, but I'm expecting all 3 points.
Yeah, brilliant. Safe travels up there and then straight back in the motor and home in time for Burnley United. So enjoy that. Boys, we'll finish with everyone's favourite podcast game, Spin the Wheel. So last week we were on defenders. I can't catch a break here with this game. Tommo, you went for Matty Cash, who got 1 point. I went for Destiny Udogi, who got 2 points. And Lawro went for Trent Alexander, or I think it was a man who goes by the name of Trent Alexander-Arnold, who he can't believe that no one else has picked up on, who had a muscular injury and got 0 points. So that really tightens it up at the top. Lawro stays on 10 points. Tommo is on 9 points. And I, after 3 game weeks, one of which Lawro's had an injured player, I'm on half the points on 5. I've spanned the wheel, and this week it's on forwards. But Lawro, as you drew a blank last week, I'll let you go first.
My phone's ran out of battery. Who's Everton playing?
Everton are away at Brentford.
Wissa for me, please. Obvious reasons.
Yeah. Tommo?
I'm just going to go for that lad, Julian Alvarez. We spoke about earlier in the corresponding fixture last season. He got a brace against Forest. So I expect nothing less, Julian.
Okay, and I am going to go for the best Scandinavian striker in the Premier League, Rasmus Hojlund, away at Burnley. Brace. Boys, that's all we got time for. We'll be back on Monday where we will review all of the weekend's action and preview any midweek fixtures as well. But pleasure as always. Have a good one. Cheers.
1, 2,